exhibition was at the WKP Kennedy Gallery in North Bay. It's actually where I worked for a couple of years as a gallery assistant and then as a gallery coordinator. I loved the job, but as an artist myself, I honestly just got tired of filling and spending my days with other people's artwork. So after a lot of deliberation, I resigned to pursue my own work full time. It was really neat to have my show in this space because of my personal history there. As for when the exhibition happened, the exhibition was supposed to run for 4 weeks, but due to a very unfortunate error, it was shortened to just 2 weeks. But you have to roll with the punches and get right back up to play another round, and ultimately it was just important for me to make the most of the short 2 weeks that I did have. It was hung on May 13th, 2011, with the opening the same evening, and it ran until May 27th. It was the shortest exhibition I've ever had or been in, honestly, but it was well received and people who viewed it seemed really delighted. I received lovely feedback in general and heard people say that my work was full of life, that they found it vibrant, that it made them feel happy, and all of that was really wonderful to hear. I even heard someone say that the artwork was refreshing like peppermint. I loved that one. That was my favorite comment. My exhibition was all bird imagery, and though its message may not have been completely apparent at first glance, it definitely had a story and a message I hoped to share. Most of the pieces were new and created specifically for this exhibition, and they were all in my usual colorful, detailed, and whimsical style. But all of the pieces in the show, no matter how cutesy or sweet or perhaps simplistic they may seem to some people, they were all meant to lead people's minds and eyes and hearts back to nature and the beauty found therein. I'm trying to get more eyes focused on nature and the unique inhabitants found within it, because I find just on a whole that people aren't really honestly seeing and really honestly deeply caring for the amazing animals that we share this world with. We must begin to go way, way beyond just the typical, oh, they're so beautiful, but then not giving them much further thought. These fleeting sentiments and comments just aren't enough nowadays. They've never been enough, in my opinion, especially when the majority of the population are raising children who eat meat. This alone backs up the fact that our disconnect with nature and the natural world is continuing. I suppose that I'm one of those annoying idealists who truly feels that you can't say you love animals yet go and eat them. Sure, you might wholeheartedly love your cat and your dog and whatever else you may have in your home, but not animals at large. And I know that's a very strong stand to take, but that's just how I feel. So anyways, back to the artwork. I was hoping to lead eyes and hearts to look towards nature. I know that it may seem like a really lofty and grand notion to pass along with artwork that is generally perhaps seen as cutesy, and as I heard a couple people even say, not substantial enough. But it's my voice and it's my colorful and gentle way to kind of nudge viewers towards what I think they need to see and think about. There are so many people worrying about humans first and foremost, but I am one, I not always have been, who just naturally feels compelled to worry about the animals. It's really just part of the magic that makes me me, is what I usually like to say. The theme of animals and birds is never far from my mind, and it weaves throughout all of my artwork on some level. I'm always so perplexed because our relationship with the natural world should be amongst one of the most natural and easy ones that we experience. Yet on a whole, we're constantly fighting against that relationship. And I hope through my artwork that I'll sort of figure that out, or at least come a little bit closer to an understanding. So overall, this exhibition was a playful approach to touch on the subject, on the beauty of animals and how we have to start noticing them more in order to help them. I really honestly don't think I have to create doom and gloom imagery to pass this message along, especially to children, who are the ones who have to sort of pick up the ball. I'm normally known for my rabbits, but for this exhibition I wanted to surprise people by not having one bunny in sight. To say, hey, I can draw other things other than rabbits, you know. And I had so much fun with the birds. True, all of my birds are imaginary, but they are most certainly inspired by the real deal. In the show, there are also a lot of my quirky and whimsy-filled girl characters. Wherever there is a figure, there's a bird, and it's pretty obvious with each and every piece that they share a fulfilling and symbiotic relationship. They aren't just side by side, but they are living within each other's domains harmoniously. Hence the title of the show, Birds of a Feather, from the old adage, birds of a feather flock together. The theme of the show coincides perfectly with my current work. I look at what I was doing years ago and what I'm doing now and what I plan to do in the near future, and I really just love how my work and the concepts of my work and that I normally roll around and work within just seem to thread and weave naturally into what I am now as a person and what I believe in and love. So much of my work now either speaks of the disconnect I see and feel, or it talks about the beautiful connections I see and I experience and I hope to see more of. And it is true that a lot of the imagery speaks of the lovely and wonderful and very fulfilling relationship and friendship that I have with the rabbits that I share my house and my studio with. Even when a picture of mine doesn't have an animal as the main theme, I find that I have a hard time not wanting to sneak one in there somehow. And I'm not an artist who draws animals because they're just fun to draw, or just because they look good in a picture, or just because I think that that's what people might want to buy. I'm drawing animals and trying to tell stories about them and for them because they are part of what makes my heart and my soul tick. Most of the work in this exhibition is done with my beloved colored pencils, of course, Prismacolors to be exact. The last couple of years I've started some mixed media pieces where I use colored pencil on paper, then I cut that image out, and then I adhere it to a painted background. And I'm really loving this process, and I think that I'm going to keep moving forward with it. It lets me get the lightness and the delicacy of colored pencil, yet it still adds in that punch of depth that paint can provide. Some pieces in the show are primarily acrylic, but 99% does have some amount of colored pencil in it. I have exhibited before, yes. This was actually my third solo show. All of my solo shows have been in North Bay, and I'm honestly ready to expand and try to get shows out of North Bay. I've been in some here and there, Lake Callender or maybe a couple hours away, and I was in one in Toronto. But I'm ready to do some bigger ones, some solo shows way out of North Bay. And I do admit that I have long dreamt of dreams of flying off to my own gallery exhibition openings in faraway places like Hawaii or Australia. Hopefully that will come someday. So yeah, this was my first show. So my first show was at an artist-run gallery. My second show was at an artist collective that I was a member of for 2 years, that I actually just left this past February. And this was my third solo show, which was, as I said, at a public gallery. I've also been in quite a few invitational shows and also in quite a few group shows as well. My favorite group show that I took part in was an exhibition called Two Nations Works on Paper, and it was a mix of Cuban artists and Canadian artists. The show traveled internationally for 3 or 4 years and it got great reviews, and it was just such a powerful, high caliber group of artists and work, and I was immensely proud to be a part of that. I was also really super proud to take part in a group exhibition in Toronto put on by the Government of Ontario with the theme of energy conservation. Though it was partly a nightmare, honestly, because I couldn't deliver my piece in person, so I had to ship it, and of course, the glass on the piece got smashed and scratched up my work a little bit. It wasn't so badly damaged that it couldn't be in the show, but it was still a few moments of stress. It was a whole crazy scenario of having to find a framers near the gallery and coordinating somebody to pick it up and bring it to the framers and bringing it back to the gallery. But it was an important show, and overall, it was a success. As for future shows, I have nothing planned at the moment. A fellow local artist and friend of mine are chatting about a possible future group show of young female artists, but we're still toying with the theme and subject that we want the show to have, and that's just kind of at the chatting about stage right now, so there's definitely nothing set in stone. It takes months to prepare for an exhibition, sometimes even upwards to a year. It's an immense amount of work. It is for me anyways. So I am honestly happy right now just to get back to my day-to-day indie creative handmade business and to showcasing and selling myself online. So I currently do not have any other shows planned, not exhibitions, but I will again, I'm quite sure, and most likely it won't be too far from now. I have to overcome a few inner doubts and many self-imposed questions first before I can expand much further into the gallery realm, I think. Doubts and worries about what kind of art belongs in what kind of gallery, how to ship artwork, cost of framing, being able to travel to exhibitions while having a house full of rabbits who stop me from traveling. These are just a few things that I have to figure out before I can move forward. But I think that's for another chat. You know, it's not entirely that different. I've been showing my work in real galleries for years now, especially locally, and I've also been showing my work online for some time as well. I take a lot of pride and care in my physical, tangible work that I show in galleries, and I take a lot of pride and care in how I present myself and my work in the online sphere. Unless you're in a situation where you're actually sitting beside your artwork in a physical gallery, like perhaps some kind of artist in residency, you don't get a lot of feedback from gallery shows. You might get a lot of praise piled on you the night of your opening if you're lucky, and you might have people leave kind comments in your guest book. But I generally don't get a whole lot of feedback from my work. And I think it's a pretty common thing for artists nowadays. But as a professional artist who has to do it for my own health and the health of my soul and spirit and heart, you just have to get accustomed to that, and you have to move forward and just not worry about comments and feedback and all of that kind of thing. When I do get feedback, however, I find it's usually from my online community. My online community feels much more supportive and present in my day-to-day creative realm than the community that's physically around me. I think worrying too much about feedback is something every artist has to be wary about. Feedback, praise, constructive criticism is something as artists we all naturally seek and do need on some level, but you can't let it touch your work really. You have to create work that your heart and your hands are telling you to create, despite any and all feedback. I think when you can do this, then you're making art for art's sake and for your own self. And I think that's part of what makes an artist a successful artist. I did learn one thing from this exhibition, most definitely, and that is to respect my work and defend it, no matter how cutesy or perhaps unsubstantial people might think it is. I realized while maneuvering around and within this specific exhibition experience that I had grown a thicker skin, that I wasn't so timid to defend my work, and I just had gotten tougher and more self-assured than when I last exhibited, perhaps. And that was a really delightful surprise and realization. I am also now quite comfortable in the fact that my work is not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm not trying to sweeten or fill everybody's cup by any means. I am trying to make work that's true to my own heart and tune. I also learned that I will never ever again agree to hang a whole entire show the same day as the opening. I've never had to do this before. Usually you have a day or two before your exhibition opens to the public, but the gallery had programmed everything so tightly that I had no choice but to hang the same day as the opening. I found it really stressful. I mean, I'm a stressed out person to begin with, but it was just too tiring. I worked as fast as I possibly could with the help of a good friend. We didn't stop for a second. We didn't stop for a sip of coffee, a bite of food, even a bathroom break. But I still found myself with less than an hour to get back home, showered, changed, take a couple of Advil because I had a migraine, of course, and then I was rushing back to the gallery before I knew it. I was honestly just a little bit too tired to enjoy my own opening. So that was definitely a lesson learned for future exhibitions.